Well, today and tomorrow over here in Larungar is the day where these are the days where we make offering to the Dharma protectors. Back around the time when Dudra Rinpoche was residing here, he made this commitment to all of the Dharma palas over here, and he stated that how they had certain conflicts back around that time when he was residing here. The Dharma protectors over here asked Dudra Rinpoche to leave here, and he went to the now Luhur County. But the other Dharma teachers asked Dudra Rinpoche to ask the Dharma protectors to return to Larungar. Therefore, Dudra Rinpoche complied with such request and made the promise where we would make the offerings to the Dharma protectors. So that's really the history of why we make offerings to the Dharma protectors over here every year, so that they will give us great blessings and to ensure that everything would go well. Usually we only have one day to make offering to the Dharma protectors when Phuntsog Rinpoche was still with us. However, nowadays we have extended this to 2 days. Not sure whose request was it. Phuntsog Rinpoche, in fact, also stated that there are the various In fact, the chant leaders should not add extra verses into the chants. So whichever way it is, now we have 2 days of making the offering to the Dharmapalas. We should practice diligently. And people over here, you should definitely pay attention to your own actions. Don't draw too much unnecessary attention. There is no class tomorrow. Not sure about day after yet. Maybe we will pause the class for tomorrow and day after. I'm not quite sure yet. I will give more announcements after. This year I've been giving more teachings even compared to Khenpo Tsojom Lodro. I think he's been giving about 40 classes. My classes compared to the ones that's given in the past, in fact, it's not as many as how I used to give. But I've been putting great effort into translation and into composing into translation, such as translation of Uttaratantra Shastra, the Entering the Way of the Great Vehicle, biography of Sarah Control, various books. The teachings in the way of entering the great vehicle included lots of the teachings from various schools, even the non-Buddhist doctrines. I myself, I feel that my physical body has been in decline. This domestically made human body compared to all of those imported qualities. I have tried my best to use this body. I've been giving lots of teachings this year, and I think in terms of the class tomorrow, I am going to cancel the class for tomorrow. I really want to try to finish the teaching this year, but I think tomorrow people will get rather quite tired from making offerings to the Dharmapalas. You may feel rather quite tired, therefore no class tomorrow. Also, the pandemic there is the relapse of pandemic. So I hope we can be more vigilant and not get into large crowds, and people who are currently outside do not travel back right now. The traveling back and forth, though there are not much of the requirement from the authorities, but I think we should definitely be more careful. I think it's the best to make this announcement and to make sure that you understand the situation. There are lots of management risks that we're taking in terms of managing the Vajra subduing continent designated to the Chinese-speaking practitioners. And we have to be very careful when we manage this large number of Sangha over here. Recently, I've been addressing this very clearly to the management team. How many classes have we studied this year? 36? Sutra of Great Liberation, 36. And Uttaratantra Shastra, it seems that you don't really care either, so you don't even know what we studied. It seems like you don't really care about how much Dharma teachings you receive every year. I guess I was right of being disappointed. The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in billions of eons. I now see it, hear, receive it, and uphold it. I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning, to liberate all beings. Let's generate the supreme bodhicitta.
Nima no renchin, Jin, Devjin, Sherpa, Jahnin, Jin, Nima no renchin, Namka don the Sabjin no, Chirtern Benjer Tagba, Ranjin Satandar Kirti, Tagshir, Hai Wombo, Tag, Hai Wombo Tar, Hai Womo Sogdam Che, Number Gary, Kanzan, Hagni Tele, Vajantak. They usually not so down. Has there none of them to know? Dini jeba wadmi tso sayi tangna nipa na nawa tenam tongjer de ngityang rongpur matopar thawang dandar jirchikchi. Dendri mulam devshita jang, deto shita gewa na yangdag langdang nipar njirar. Deto gewa leti na ndarnang tsamjin deshtabar. Deshtabar shiba me kyang sartang nen putel harar jevar njirar. Nawa tena shinda yang stokpa me kyang yuwa me to Deshta moja sartang na tonchin jina nyebar ne. Devjin tasuk chimit jan yondan tasuk yondan gomba yi rangsim larnang zoksang di sandang huishir damba dang chakdang zhangwa chakba dang na zhangwa dang jikba dang na zimba dang sholum na zom zapa dang jivi chunok somba mu som nyambar zhigdirba chumchir namba na zog dang zapa zimdang chimbo zimdang chimbo jan zimdang chimbo jan simjin namjim tong girwa demtong nejang dordan ba sangdi nyechi rabjurte tergid yangtag langni nandopi kompang tobar sheda nawan dana shinda yang stokme yowa mepa nye terta nayang jikte na tonchimbo na nyewara ne tena rangsim nawa ji sozu kiyo mishimo terta nayang zimtong te tedak Dedag den donyon gir rimji demtong lapten ne tagban dala ne bar nam nung tagamba churk na ishi mekam tongwaran gir jirtar saganam nyamgi ne dang jane tamchir jimit benjir ya xarimzi nori yontan chibchir hwardan tangnam nigir de nyamgirte tagshirte na lhatag snatsug lhawang yinag zigshirte rimji sayi yondan jarshirte na hlaryang marnang gir tegnu toshir nyegne ftarji ngibir jinsug lapshug ba vidmer kezug munum semji metug lasug tongwartar torwartar tagban benji yenji semlat nawi tawang toshi shir raggi semdan gyarba khchirnam devjin semkid shid jirtirin benji savjig tsama la lhawang leki gzignan nawatar devjin josim savjig tsama la tibugwan burki gzignan char njobar gzignan charnabar nyugme tang nyugba sem nyugba rangsim ramji wangin jig jirtirin jikten tagna gzignan tar devjin yotang jig ji me temar ta Шунжих карпомты намбатон намбар топа мэвжен да мэртэн да живи да ханым чутиринга
Now let's get into the class of Uttaratantra Shastra. In this chapter, it talks about the activities of the Buddha. Previously, we've already studied how the Buddha's activity is of spontaneous and uninterrupted in front of the sentient beings. We've already covered on the summary aspect and the concise teachings. Today we're going to look at the examples that's given to further expound the various activities or the qualities of the activities. Now let's look at the different outline that corresponds to this part of the teaching, where over here we're going to look at the detailed explanation in combination with the examples, and then concise teaching of the different kinds of examples, and then detailed explanation of the examples and their meanings, also the combination of the example of meaning. So this is the outline that is going to be taught within. First of all, there are people who's going to ask questions such as, well, since you were to say that the Buddha is of no birth and no death, if you were to say that the Buddha is has the characteristic of unconditioned, then how could the Buddha conduct his activity of benefiting sentient beings spontaneously and uninterruptedly. In order to dispel such kind of doubts and delusion, then the Buddha and then the Maitreya started to expound through 9 metaphors when we were 9 examples. So in the previous part, when we were talking about the Buddha nature, the element aspect, we also studied the 9 examples and how it corresponded to the various qualities. There's a sutra. It's called that the Buddha's magnificent wisdom and luminosity entering into all the Buddha fields sutra. There's the translated version into Chinese by Bodhiruchi. And within this particular sutra, there are the 9 examples demonstrated in this sutra as well, except that some of the very little details that is a little bit different. According to the Wei translation of Uttaratantra Shastra, some of those are not included. It is really after the comparison you'll be able to notice the differences. Anyhow, let's look at the examples. Over here it says that a Tathagata is similar to Indra, to the drum of the gods, clouds to Brahma, the sun, a precious gem, to an echo, to space, and the earth. Over here, this part talks about the 9 different examples. The Buddha, without having any dualistic ideation, he benefits sentient beings spontaneously. To our ordinary mind, we feel that whenever it is time for whenever we need to benefit sentient beings and be along with the same abode with the sentient beings, there must be some ideation and conceptualization or differentiation. But over here it says that the Tathagata, in fact, does not have any of those dualistic ideation at all. How is that so? Let's look at the first example. Over here it says that Indra, it demonstrates the body is the appearance of the reflection of the Indra in a lapis lazuli ground, and the second one is the example of the speech exhorting the sacred dharma, that is drum of the gods, which is to dispel the afflictions of the sentient beings. This is the aspect where, in fact, the Buddha doesn't have any dualistic ideation and can benefit sentient beings spontaneously, effortlessly, just like how the drums of the gods would effortlessly and spontaneously expound sound. The Buddha's speech of sacred dharma, such as the Four Noble Truths and so on, are also effortlessly expounded. And then the third one talks about clouds are the example for the way in which knowledge and compassion pervade everything. Just like how the clouds would have the capacity to permeate all over the space, effortlessly, the clouds would be able to bestow great rain to nurture the crops on the ground. So that's similar to the knowledge and compassion of that of the Buddha. The fourth one talks about the example illustrating the various illusory manifestations of the body is Brahma. Without moving away from his own abode, brings about the benefit of gods to the realm of desire by means of an illusory appearance. That's the fourth one. And then the fifth one says that In fact, if you notice from the first four, we see from the body, speech, and mind aspect, and then the fourth one talks about the example that corresponds to a Brahma. The fifth one talks about the way in which light rays issue from the sun is example for the spreading radiance of primordial wisdom. So step by step, or one by one, the sun would be able to spread radiance from one to that all of the phenomena of this world that is similar to the radiance of the primordial wisdom of the Buddha. And the sixth one talks about the example for the inconceivable secret aspect of mind is precious wish-fulfilling gem that brings forth any necessities that are desired. It could be wealth, it could be anything that one desires. So this wish-fulfilling gem is definitely able to have such capacity of fulfilling everyone's wishes. Seventh one talks about the example for the inconceivable secret aspect of the Tathagata's speech is an echo resounding back from a rock. The way in which the echo is not real yet demonstrates various articulate sound. And then the eighth one talks about the inconceivable secret aspect of the body is space, just like how the space permeates everything. However, it is not considered as part of the conditioned Dharma, conditioned phenomena. And then the ninth one talks about the great compassion of the Buddha. The great compassion is just like the earth that would provide the basis for everything else. It naturally fulfills the benefits for all phenomena and sentient beings. This is a very important quote and very famous because it provides the 9 examples to demonstrate all the qualities of the Buddha, the activities of the qualities of the Buddha. So let's look at the first example that's demonstrated over here, which is through that of an Indra, the Lord of gods. First of all, let's look at the body demonstrating the illusory appearance and then presentation of the example and the way it appears. Today, if we can finish the first example, that would be really good. Let's look at the first verse where it says then, how it is it is devoid of the dualistic ideation that is the expressed idea, and then the Buddha is the main object of example, and the meaning of the example is the Buddha, and then the main object of the example is that of an Indra, which is considered as the Lord of all gods. Let's look at the first aspect. Let's look at the 4 aspects of the meaning of the example. Now, first of all, it says that if the surface of the pure ground where it corresponds to the image, and the second one is to practice the virtuous deeds, and the third aspect of the outline talks about how to obtain the fruition, and the fourth one talks about effortlessness. The example goes as if the surface of the ground here changed into the nature of immaculate lapis lazuli. Over here, this example shows that if the sentient beings, for example, were to see or have such kind of merit to see the immaculate aspect, they would be able to see this reflection. This particular example is well received back around that time. So Maitreya Bodhisattva then used this example to further demonstrate how the Buddha is benefiting sentient beings without any ideation. And this example is, since this example is well acknowledged and received, therefore it would be a really good example to demonstrate that aspect of the activity of the Buddha. Just like nowadays, whenever we watch any movie or any of those entertainment shows and so on, whenever we look at the TV or the screen, there's in fact no entity of the actors or indras or celestial beings. However, with the conditions or the images that appears on the screen, we would conjure up all kinds of ideations, some virtuous and some non. I believe the education of the Buddha can be associated to the current media, and then if we can associate the Buddha Dharma to the media in this way, people would get more and more familiarized with the teaching of the Dharma and then get attracted to the profound teaching of the Dharma. Anyhow, over here it says that some of the very profound teachings that's difficult to understand. Then if we can use an example, I think it will be easier for people to generate a sense of interest and then slowly to develop a sense of understanding towards that profound teaching. People nowadays, however, I feel that they would believe in all kinds of unfathomable events that happens in this world, but when it comes to the unfathomable teachings of the Buddha or unfathomable teachings of the various religions, I think people tend to get more they tend to feel a sense of repulsion for some reason. If the whole Jambudvipa's ground were to transform into this large ground of lapis lazuli, then from the reflection of this beautiful gem-like reflection, you see the pure reflection of the Lord of Gods and various celestial beings, as well as their marvelous structures. So I think that part is missing from our explanation over here. Anyhow, over here it talks about how the ground is really immaculate to start with. And from such an immaculate ground, the reflection of the Lord of Gods, that is Indra, as well as many of the maiden goddesses and the beautiful palaces can be reflected upon it. The beautiful palaces, that is the immeasurable palaces or the supreme palaces that belongs to Lord Indra. Lord Indra resides in the palace of Supreme Palace, and the other great lords abide in the various other palaces. On top of that, there are many different kinds of adornments and exquisite buildings, such as beautiful staircases and pillars and pavilions and the pond that is filled with the water of 8 merits and all kinds of flowers and so on and so forth. So over there are various kinds of various kinds of adornments that ornate the celestial realm, such as the palaces and fences made of gold and the other various kinds of jewels and gems, all kinds of flower and fresh offerings and so on. It is of great beauty and it is of the most splendid scenes. Whenever we see all kinds of really beautiful things in our realm, in the human realm, we also then would get very much attracted to them. Master Tanluan, according to the biography of great masters, he stated that there was once that when he was growing up, he listened to lots of the wonderful stories of Buddha Dharma, and when he went to Mount Wutai and he saw various kinds of miraculous manifestations. After being attracted to all of those, he got ordained, and after he got ordained, he engaged in various kinds of studies in Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra and the Sutra of Great Assembly and so on and so forth, and especially the Sutra of Great Assembly. He also composed the various kinds of essays. Halfway through his writing of the essay on the Sutra of Great Assembly, he encountered some adversity and got ill. He had to go and seek for some kind of cure for his illness. And halfway through his seeking for the cure for his illness, he saw the sky opens up, and then he started seeing the various kinds of reflections or various images of the heaven realm, and right away his illness was gone. After seeing those splendid images in celestial realm, people may feel that why is it that the celestial beings can see the reflections of us, but we can't see them? It is really from certain aspect we could see it if we have made such connections. And then the next one over here says that at that time, if the surface of the ground have here changed, at that time the assembly of men and women who inhabit the surface of the earth saw this appearance. Each would say, "Before a long time pass, may I too become like this, Lord of the gods." Prayers like this they would utter, and to achieve the feast would adopt a genuine virtue and remain within it. There are sentient beings after seeing such wonderful scenes and this beauty and all of the splendid sceneries and offerings and the delightful sounds and luxurious adornments and so on, all the sentient beings abiding on the ground, they would make such aspiration. May I, in the short future, be able to fulfill all kinds of virtue, so that I will have the great merit to enjoy the various kinds of conditions that is exactly like the Lord of gods, that is Indra. Sentient beings, after seeing the beautiful adornments in celestial realm, and then practicing various kinds of meritorious deeds, they will have the opportunity to be reborn in Trishrimsha's heaven and to enjoy the same kinds of enjoyments. After seeing such beautiful presentations of the images of Trishrimsha's heaven, the sentient beings started to generate the aspiration, saying that, may I please also fulfill my merits and be able to enjoy all of those perfect enjoyments of the Indra. Whenever people see such pure manifestations, they would generate such aspiration to practice virtue and protect and to generate a sense of observance of moral conduct.
说是就彼当以善意虽不了此相如是现现你此事。
Then the next verse says, "This is just an appearance. There would not be any such understanding. Still, their virtuous deeds would lead them to be reborn in a divine existence after they departed from the surface of the earth. If the men and women were to practice diligently with observing their vows and various kinds of virtuous deeds, they will be able to see, especially after seeing the images of the environment and the circumstances of that of an Indra, then they would practice all those virtues. But those splendid scenes are really just an image. Whenever we see any images through the online advertisement or TV advertisement from the celebrities, somehow we would also generate a sense of eagerness to wanting to have the same things as them.
或者说是有一些这个包括就是有一些虚拟的世界的话呢，现在那个网络上的很多的这个
the beautiful appearance or the various kinds of beautiful environment. Especially with technology nowadays, there's the kind of capacity of building various kinds of virtuous, the various kinds of virtue reality, but those kind of so-called man-made virtual reality are not of any intrinsic meaning. They do not have any profound virtuous deeds beneath that. However, with the manifestation of the appearance of the celestial realm of Triyashrimshas, people would be able to be encouraged of practicing virtue so that they can cultivate the seeds of being reborn in the Triyashrimshas heaven and have the same kinds of enjoyments as Indra. This is the third aspect of the example. And the fourth aspect of this example refers to the effortless aspect, where it talks about these appearances are totally free from ideation and do not involve the slightest movement at all. There is nothing of this kind, and yet, nevertheless, they are accompanied by great benefit on the earth. So all the images that's reflected from the lapis lazuli's ground, it appears without any dualistic ideation. It does not have any effort, movement, or changes. However, it could put an impetus to the beings of Jambuvipa to practice virtue. And people would be able to perceive it. And then they would generate virtue in order to receive those kinds of enjoyments. In fact, people naturally want to seek for something beautiful, and their actions are to pursue those beauty and all of those wonderful things. On the internet nowadays, there are lots of the advertisement and propagation to lure people into desire of wanting to receive something rather unrealistic. It could be through our propagation or advertisement. For example, the product of beauty, the product of health. There are lots of false advertisements. Many of those advertisements could be quite persuasive, where they try to convince people if you don't have so-and-so product, there's really no meaning of you to stay in this world, such as at the beginning of the popularity of iPhone. There was one young man from China who sold one of his kidneys in order to buy an iPhone. But nowadays, it seems that let it be iPhone or Android, any of those Samsung or whatever devices you have, they're the same. There's nothing that is of grave difference. The marketing people are very good at identifying the three poisons of people. Through their understanding of the three poisons of human beings, they purposely generate the advertisement to suit their afflictions and then guide them to create desire towards their product. There are various kinds of conditions that's happening nowadays. The various situations that we encounter, in fact, are all based on our virtuous deeds, our merits, and our aspiration, the various kinds of karmic retributions and karmic habitual patterns that we've accumulated for lifetimes. And then through those accumulations, it seems that we tend to be easily dwell in the traps of internet. So that's from rather a false aspect of image and appearance. But over here, where it talks about the various kinds of images and appearances that's reflected from the ground of lapis lazuli, of the images of Indra. Nowadays, I think if we can use internet in a positive way to attract people into the Dharma, especially the ones with virtuous deeds, the ones with the great virtue. For example, the various kinds of broadcasting. Once you receive teachings through various methods, such as recording and broadcasting, you will be able to gain a sense of understanding of the Dharma, and it could create beneficial effect on you. At the beginning of my teaching, many people were listening to my teachings outside of Larangar, and I noticed many of whom engaged in diligent studies, even more so than those of you staying over here. People who's not in Larangar, though they don't have such opportunities to study over here, but they really grabbed onto the opportunity of listening to the Dharma through online means, and through those kind of methods, they really studied various teachings, and that really benefited them. People from various places that's tens of thousands of kilometers away could still receive the same teachings as that of as those of you who are staying here. That is inconceivable compared to really inconceivable, especially to the people of the ancient times. There are all kinds of changes, all kinds of impermanence. In the ancient times, they would use various examples to show that, for example, as Indra, as and other metaphors and examples in the other traditions, they may say that it is because of the blessings of God or of the creator of the celestial beings and so on. But from the Buddhist point of view, we see that it is really because of the unimaginable conditions and causes. And because of such causes and conditions, we now have the ability to perceive the teaching, to receive the teaching from all kinds of screens, let it be the TV or computer or cell phones. So we really have an opportunity to gear through our mind towards either virtue or vice. It is completely up to you. However, it is difficult to persevere with that of the virtue, because around various times there could be the adversities that happens halfway through. So we should use any kinds of methods to prolong our continuity of the virtue, the strength and power of the virtue. I myself, I've tried my best to keep the continuity of such virtue with blessings of Pontsuk Rinpoche. When I look at people who are my peers, how many of them continued their teachings for 40 years? Not many. It is difficult. So I'm very much thankful to those of you who created good conditions and causes and contributed into this. Also, I'm thankful to all of spirits who helped and who made adversities as well. This is really the way of the meaning of the 7 verses of training the mind. Over here, it talks about how it is out of the non-dual ideation. However, it is still contributing into the virtuous accumulation of the beings on earth. Now let's look at how it corresponds to various kinds of meanings. In terms of the meaning, there are the 4 aspects as well. The first one talks about out of the pure mind, it appears the form kaya, and the second one talks about to seek for the fruition, and the third one talks about the effortlessness, and the fourth one talks about the step-by-step attainment of the Dharmakaya. The first aspect, let's look at it, where it talks about the form of how to obtain the form with a pure mind. Those endowed with unpolluted faith and so forth, having cultivated the qualities of faith and so on, will see in their own minds, the Buddha's appearance, which is perfect and has special signs and marks. They will see the Buddha while he is walking, standing, sitting, or resting in sleep. They will see him in manifold forms of conduct when explaining the teaching leading to peace, when silently resting in meditative equipoise, or when displaying various forms of miracles, possess great splendor and magnificence. The Buddha will be seen by all sentient beings. The sentient beings of various kinds of virtue would be able to perceive the form of the Buddha. First of all, you need to purify your faith, purify your mind, and then practicing upon it, practicing on all kinds of virtue, and with the power of virtue, you'll be able to perceive you'll be able to perceive the 32 marks and qualities of the Buddha, the all-perfect qualities and characteristics of the Buddha. At that time, you'll be able to see the Buddha's various actions, such as walking and standing or sitting or resting in sleep, or the posture, such as resting, that is stated in Parinirvana, that is demonstrated through his parinirvana, or standing and carrying out all kinds of actions, such as touching people's crown and give them blessings, or giving teachings on the liberation or or the dharma of extinguishing all kinds of afflictions. Or instead of giving the teaching through speech, rather entering into samadhi, or manifest into all kinds of miraculous forms and activities, or manifest in the way that is radiating great luminosity. So the beings with the beings with the kind of connections to the Buddha and made such a virtue to perceive the Buddha in such a way, they can perceive the Buddha in various forms, various manifestations. And such kind of manifestation is just like the reflection that is talked about in the previous verse about how the Indra and Indra's palaces are reflected. The Buddha also talked about if one were to say that you have met the Buddha, then such kind of person must have believed in the wrong doctrine and treading on the wrong path. This is not truly of seeing the Buddha. When truly seeing the Buddha, it is depending on the faith of each different individuals. It could be in a dream, it could be in a meditative insight, and so on. I remember that there's a story of Master Chi. He himself entered into the great assembly of the Buddha. Master Xuanzang's biography, where it talks about Master Xuanzang when he traveled to India, and he heard that there is one cave, and the cave's name is the cave of the reflections of the Buddha. Therefore, he went in there. He then first heard that there are people whom first saw the subjugation of a vicious naga by the Buddha, and then slowly there were more and more people to see the reflections of the Buddha. However, that cave is very difficult to that particular cave is very difficult to travel to because there are lots of bandits and various kinds of dangers lay around the way to that cave. However, out of great devotion and faith, Master Xuanzang then decided to go there, but nobody really wanted to travel with him because they've all heard of such reputation of the path can be dangerous. Then there was one old man who decided to guide him to there. And then on the way, the two of them encountered a group of bandits, the 5 bandits. The bandits asked them, "Aren't you afraid to travel on this path?" And then Master Xuanzang said that, "Well, I am not even afraid of all the non-human beings, all the spirits and nagas. Why would I be afraid of someone who is as the same kind of human being as I am?" And then the bandits got really curious of where they're traveling to, and Master Xuanzang said that they're traveling to this cave where there are various kinds of manifestations of the Buddha. So the bandits got very curious, therefore they followed along to the cave. In the cave, Master Xuanzang, with his practice, he slowly started to see the various forms of the Buddha, and then he continued to practice in prostration in the cave, and then eventually he saw the various Buddhas in there. Master Xuanzang then invited all the bandits to enter into the cave also to see the appearance of all the Buddhas. I've heard so from the biography it says that only one of the bandits didn't see the appearances, but the rest of them all saw the appearances of the Buddhas, the reflections of the Buddhas, and all of them took refuge in the three jewels afterwards. So whenever you have great faith towards the Dharma, towards certain teachings, and whenever you see whenever you generate such deep faith, you would definitely be able to perceive, for example, the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas or your gurus in your dreams or in your insights. Now let's look at the next verse where it says that these appearances are totally free from ideation. And over here, it is manifest. It is just an appearance and a manifestation, and one should generate such understanding and aspiration to practice all virtue, so that their virtuous deeds would be able to lead them into the rebirth in divine existence and even the Buddhahood. So that's something that one should pursue. And if a person were to practice in such a way and practice the 6 paramitas and so on, they would definitely be able to attain the kind of fruition that they desire. It is crucial for us to make aspiration and especially make the aspiration when it comes to dedication of merit as well. In the later part of entering the way of great vehicle, it also states that there are people who don't really know how to rededicate the merit in order to fulfill their aspiration. There are people who only make very small aspiration that is quite menial in intrinsic meaning. Therefore, we have to learn how to make the genuine aspiration for the great Bodhi. Whenever we enter into any shrine halls or any places where we can make a wish, we should make the wish of attaining enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings. In the past, whenever the great masters would give teachings and give blessings, then the people I heard more aspirations of saying that how they want to dispel their obstacles and they want to gain so and so, they want to have better salaries and more wealth and so on. But nowadays, I think with more of the studies of the Dharma, I notice a larger group of people would make the aspiration and ask for and request for blessings from the Guru by saying that may such blessings dawn so that I can benefit sentient beings, so that I can generate the supreme and undefiled bodhicitta. So I do see that there is a change of the aspiration after the education of Buddhism. Now the next one talks about how the Buddha, in fact, is of no ideation at all. There is no differentiation of there's no differentiation of friends or foe. There's no change whatsoever slightly. These appearances are totally free from ideation and do not involve the slightest movement at all. There is nothing of this kind, and yet, nevertheless, they are accompanied by great benefit in the world. I think if we were to generate aspiration and to rededicate our merit in such a way, it would be of great benefit. It could be that whenever we are taking a pilgrimage tour, whenever we are supplicating the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or making some offerings, any of those virtues, if we were to practice all of those virtues, indeed, it would be very beneficial and meaningful to dispel the obstacles and karmic obscurations in our mind. The Buddha's body cannot be perceived. However, the meaning of such is of great profound. However, there is nothing that can be obtained, as they are all unconditioned. Whenever we see the form of the Buddha, of course, in our insights, that would be very beneficial. But if we can't see it in our insights, if we can see the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas statues, even on the outside, that would still be very beneficial too. Yesterday, a Lama came to visit me. We have very good friendship, and then I decided to gift him one really beautiful Buddha statue. But halfway through, when I was looking at that Buddha statue, I felt that it looks very beautiful, and I don't really want to gift it to him anymore. Therefore, I stood up and changed that statue into a Manjushri statue. It's easy to understand. The next part is very easy to understand, so I'll just briefly explain it. Yesterday I was a little stingy in giving the gift of the Buddha statue to the others. There was once I remembered that there was a time I tried to take out a $1 bill to give to the beggar, but somehow it was $100 bill, but I had to give it anyways, because it's hard to retrieve that action. Though the sentient beings do not understand that the various forms are really just part of their own mind. The worldly beings do not have such insight of knowing so. Yet their seeing of this visible kaya will become meaningful for these beings, relying on gradually beholding this form. All of those who follow the great vehicle will set their genuine inner Dhammakaya by means of the eye of primordial wisdom. So whatever we perceive, all the pure and beautiful visible kayas, let it be the Buddha statues or let it be the reflection of the Indras and their palaces. In fact, all of those visible kayas, the manifestations, the Nirmanakaya or the statues, those, though, are only appearance of their own mind, but such kind of seeing, such kind of insights also are very meaningful. Sometimes I do feel that we are very fortunate. Now we live in this world where we can still see the Buddhas and Buddha statues, and we can still see the we can still receive the teachings that is a Dharma, and we can still see the followers of the Buddha that is a Sangha. We're really fortunate. According to Mipa Rinpoche in his composition of the Wisdom chapter, where he stated that if before the vanishing of the self and object, it is important for us to still make the decision and choices, because the object would still be able to create a sense of benefit or harm to oneself. To me, myself, I feel that I shouldn't have too high of an requirement from all of you, and I shouldn't be too perfectionist. Otherwise, there would be lots of suffering, especially we live in this degenerated age. Since we have these kinds of merits of doing whatever we are doing, this is already quite wonderful. According to the Lotus Sutra, where it says that even by venerating the Buddha, by saying Namo Buddhaya, would generate the immeasurable numbers of virtue. Therefore, whatever we can see, let it be the Nirmanakaya, let it be the statues or any kinds of visible kayas, is still very beneficial to the sentient beings. So such sentient beings with the benefit of seeing those reflections will rely on gradually beholding this form, and all of those follow the great vehicle and slowly see the non-duality of the genuine inner Dharmakaya. Whenever we perceive there are people who entered into the path of Buddhism after entering into a monastery or seeing a monastic, and then slowly they can be led to the Mahayana and then fruition of full enlightenment. It was based on this cause and condition of perceiving something virtuous, that is the monastery or the statue or the monastic. So people need to perceive something virtuous to start with. And then, just like how human beings first, after perceiving the splendid manifestation of the Indra and his palaces, they would generate the aspiration of practicing virtue, so that such kind of virtue would lead them to be reborn in the celestial realm. Similarly, the sentient beings need to perceive the Buddha's qualities, and that is all wonderful and perfected, to have the aspiration of studying and leading their way towards such Dharmakaya. The students over here, I believe that all of you have already studied into various kinds of teachings of the five treatises and so on. And many of you have already studied very diligently. On one hand, it's good. On the other hand, I think we shouldn't be too complacent in our current progress. Don't squander your time and your life and your precious human body onto anything that is meaningless and not leading you towards liberation. So, on one hand, we do need to engage in diligent study, and what's more important is to engage in the actual practice of to synchronize yourself to the Dharma through the practice, so that the Dharma would infuse into your mind and then would create genuine benefit to you onto your path of liberation. Otherwise, I notice that people nowadays, though after studies they understand the teaching, but their actions are still far away from the Dharma. But of course, you shouldn't completely give up on studying either. And then the next one talks about the detailed explanation of the example in correspondence to the meaning, where it says that if the whole earth became rid of fearful places and turned into an even surface of lapis lazuli that was flawless and radiant and beautiful, having a gem's quality and unstained luster and shimmer and various divine abodes, and the form of their lords would shine forth within it because of its purity. So over here it says that though in this world we perceive all kinds of ups and downs, all kinds of the harmful environments that has cliffs and has lots of hollows and caves and so on and so forth. However, if the whole earth, like such, can be turned into an even surface of lapis lazuli that is completely flawless and gentle and soft, just like the palm of the hand, can be flat as a mirror or even as a mirror and pure as a mirror, from this earth that is mirror-like, that is endowed with all kinds of merits, it could reflect the image of the Indra as well as the supreme palaces of the Indra and many kinds of the materials that is to be enjoyed. However, just like when we turn off a screen, we will not be able to see the images within. The causes and conditions are like so as well. If there are the causes and conditions, then it would appear. If there's no such causes and conditions for it to reflect, then it won't appear. But the sentient beings, after seeing those enjoyments and splendid palaces, the men and women with faith, in order to receive the same kinds of enjoyments, they would engage in all kinds of virtuous deeds. such as making offerings and making incense, offering incense and prostrate and practice all kinds of observation of precepts and so on, in order to receive the same kind of fruition that is of the Indra, so that they can enjoy all the splendid enjoyments of the Indra. Similarly, if we were to seek for if we were to long for the same kinds of wonderful qualities of the Lord of Muni, that is the Buddha, since we've already perceived the great qualities of the Buddha, the great qualities of Bodhisattva, great qualities of the Lama, then they would generate a great sense of joy and then make the aspiration. Whenever you see any Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the great masters, your guru, then you should first of all to make a great aspiration. There are people after relying on a teacher for many years, they do not make the aspiration in front of them. That is such a waste, because what is more important than making great aspirations? After making the great aspiration of Bodhi, then you should tread diligently on practicing the 6 paramitas. For people whom do not have such virtuous qualities, then they will not be able to perceive the images of the purity of the Buddha, of the gurus, of the great bodhisattvas. And then the next one will finish the first metaphor. Over here, it talks about just like how the pure lapis lazuli can reflect the kaya of or the body of the Indra, the pure mind of the sentient beings can reflect that of the shadow or reflection of the Buddha. This is a very famous and well-quoted verse. So over here it says that because of the pure reflection of lapis lazuli, the reflection of the Indra can be manifested. So for the pure mind of the sentient beings, for the same reason, the pure mind, that is the ground of the sentient beings, can also reflect the body and the kaya and the form of the Buddha as well. Over here, it really emphasizes on the purity of the sentient beings. People with pure mind, they will be able to perceive everything as pure, everything as beautiful. Whomsoever surrounds them are wonderful people. And they have the ability to have harmony with anyone around. They can have a sense of harmony with all kinds of things, whatever happens around them. And people without a pure mind, it's very difficult for them to perceive everything as pure, and they would create various kinds of conflicts with one another. And some of our staff members tend to have certain conflicts. I noticed that they don't have a pure mind, and that is why they generate all kinds of misunderstandings and all kinds of conflicts. We are gathered here. In fact, we generate more virtue than that of the vice. But I really want to make sure that you understand it is really unnecessary for you to create vice over here in Larungar. Many staff members or the staff members no longer serve the Sangha. Sometimes when we talk about their actions during their the time on post, they sometimes feel a sense of great regret that they feel that they shouldn't have created any conflict. Today, I made an apology to a group of lay practitioners that I work with, and I said that I apologize for whatever kinds of inappropriate speech and actions given to you. Though they started it. But I think it is important that we maintain a sense of pure mind on our own end. If we have a pure mind, then it's easy for us to perceive everything as pure. If our mind is not pure, then we would generate rather lots of afflictions and quarrels. Sometimes when our mind is impure, then it doesn't matter if you have a great aspiration. You would still encounter lots of adversities and lots of quarrels among different situations and beings. Sutra of Great Liberation, 21 classes this year, and Uttaratantra Shastra, 19 classes. Entering the way of Great Vehicle, 5 classes, and Dharmapada Clarification, 5 classes, Ulambana Sutra, 2 classes, 37 Bodhisattvas, 37 verses of Bodhisattvas, 1 class, open class, 2 open sessions, 1 class, so together 60 classes. On top of that, there are more. Okay, thank you for your recognition of my effort. Over here, then the next verse says that the sentient beings, though they have the kinds of reflections, previously we talked about the appearing and not appearing of the Indra. In fact, they are based on the cause and conditions. And over here it talks about the appearing and not appearing of the Buddhas are based on the sentient beings' pure and impure mind, pure or impure mind. If the sentient being's mind is defiled, then they will not be able to see the kaya of, or the form of the Buddha, nor the Dharma, nor the Sangha. But if the person's mind is pure, such ground of the mind is pure, then they will be able to see the reflection of the Buddha. So this is very similar to the examples of the Indra. Though the Buddhas over here it says that just like the form of the Indra appears in the world, they are not to be viewed as existent or extinct. We should not perceive such. We should not see it as an entity of existent or extinct, because the Dharmakaya is unconditioned. There is no arising and no ceasing. The seeing or not seeing such forms and reflections of the Indras are there in their streams as heaven. Similarly, the seeing and not seeing of the Buddha's Dharmakaya is always there abiding. It is not ceasing, not extinct. This is the teaching that's given over here. And over here we've concluded the first example that is corresponding to the Indra.